Hi friends, it's finally fall in Odessa. The weather is cooler, the leaves are yellow, and I thought this would be the perfect time to take you on a morning walk through the Odessa city center and show you some of the historical places that Odessa is famous for. So let's go, take a walk around. And the first stop on our tour is one of the most famous symbols of Odessa. We're here at the Potemkin staircase. Potemkin staircase got its name from a very famous Russian film. Back in 1925, it was called Battleship Potemkin. Famous scene is when the ship is out there in the port bombarding the city. People are running all around, and there's a baby carriage simply careening down these steps. That scene made these stairs famous to the entire Soviet world. Odessa sits on a very high plateau, way above the sea and the port. And thus, initially the residents simply needed a way to get down from the city to the port. The staircase was built with 200 steps, but since then a few were lost. Initially, during the expansion of the port over 100 years ago, a few were covered up, and then later on there was a road built between the port and the stairs. So today there's not 200 steps, but I think we're missing a dozen or more. Still, a very impressive sight, and again, a true symbol of Odessa. Now I want to show you guys one more cool thing about these steps. Check it out. If you look down from the very top, it appears that the stairs are the same width at the top than they are at the bottom. And thus, the two lines on both sides are exactly parallel to each other. Now, we know that that can't happen. If an object is further away, then the two parallel lines should be converging towards it. How did they achieve this? Well, it's an optical illusion. The stairs are twice as wide on the bottom than they are at the top. And thus, they appear to be exactly the same width when looking from the top of the stairs. This was done on purpose. I think it's a very cool effect and wanted to share that with you. The next symbol of Odessa sits directly above the stairs, and it is the statue to the Duke de Richleau. A Frenchman, the Duke governed Odessa in 1803 for 11 years, and he was truly a beloved governor. He did amazing things for the city. He's known for building the first parks, for example, green spaces that we still enjoy today. He designed alleyways lined with these large sycamore trees. We actually see an example of that right behind me. The statue has a real life-size cannonball embedded in it. The story behind the cannonball is back during the Crimean War that happened here, the French Navy blockaded the port and was bombarding the city. One of the cannonballs hit the Duke directly head-on. Ever since then, Odessans have a joke. The French came to kill us, but hid their own. Now, if the name Duke de Richelieu sounds familiar to you, it should. The Duke is the great-grandson of Cardinal de Richelieu, who is of course the main character in Alexander Dumas's The Three Musketeers. And here we are at the jewel of Odessa City Center, the pride and joy of Odessa, the Grand Opera House. The first theater at this location was built in 1810, but because it was a wooden structure, has since burned down, actually several times, and what you see behind me was built in 1887. Today the theater is home to ballet performances, of course opera, theater, and all of this goes year-round, so this is a destination for every Odessan whenever they want a night out. Interesting fact about the Opera House is it actually survived World War II. And the way they did it is because they wanted to protect this building specifically, artillery pieces were put on residential buildings all around this square. And that artillery was meant to protect the building from the bombardments that the Romanian forces were unleashing on the city. Around the Opera House is a beautiful square, which you can't see now, but is right behind me, with beautiful fountains, flower beds, and again, it's just a gathering place for Odessans on the weekend to just spend a great night out. On our next stop, I wanted to introduce you guys to another very famous resident of Odessa, the great Russian poet Alexander Sergeyevich Pushkin. Pushkin didn't spend long living in Odessa, but he did spend about a year and a half, living right in the apartment behind me, which I'll show you a bit later. Pushkin was very famous in Odessa, not only for being a great poet, but also a great womanizer, and that's what actually got him in trouble. He split his time, half between writing poetry and half between attending Odessa's high society balls. And at those balls, he met a girl. But that girl turned out to be the wife of the then governor of Odessa, Vorontsov. Vorontsov found out about the affair and had Pushkin exiled from Odessa. Let's take a quick look inside. This is the courtyard where he lived. Today, it's home to his museum, and if we look up, those two windows are the windows to his apartments where he spent his time in Odessa. Pushkin's statue is located directly in front of the Parliament building that you see behind me. Its position is no accident. Back when it was being erected, the people of Odessa came to the city parliament and asked them to pay for the statue so it could grace the city. The parliament refused, and the people had to pay for the statue all by themselves. Ever since, Pushkin stands here with his back permanently turned on the city parliament. And here we are on Deribasovskaya Street, kind of the central hub for the tourist activity here in Odessa. Place is filled with restaurants, clubs, hotels, everything you need to have a good time. Street is named after a famous founder of Odessa named Deribas. A lot of people think that that's actually a Russian name. It's not. Deribas is actually named Deribas, an Italian Spaniard that came here to fight in the Imperial Army and rose through the ranks to become one of the founders of Odessa. To my right is one of the oldest parks in the city, named Gorsad, which I'll show you next. And to my left is one of the oldest commercial centers in the city, called the Passage. We'll check that out as well. Let's take a look. Gorsad is one of the oldest public spaces in Odessa. It became a park when a wealthy noble donated a portion of his land right in the city center to be the very first park that was created in Odessa. Today, Gorsad is a gathering place for young and old to spend a great evening out, enjoy the nature, and beautiful performances that take place right there at that gazebo. Well, here we are at the Passage. Passage simply means the passage, and it was built over 100 years ago as one of the first commercial centers / a hotel in the center of Odessa. It was built by a very famous Jewish merchant named Moses Mendelevich, and to this day his initials, MM, are engraved in the stonework that we see at the Passage to this day. Today, the Passage is still a commercial center. To my right and to my left, we see many stores, boutiques, restaurants that are still open here today. And as I just found out, it's also going to be home to Odessa's next casino. On our way to the next destination, we're passing through something called Polski Spust, or the Polish descent. Essentially a staircase that connects upper downtown Odessa to the port entrance below. This place is also home to another landmark, right to my right, and this is Odessa's oldest and most expensive whorehouse. Prices are about $100 per hour. I conveniently forgot my wallet, so we're not going to stop in. But the reason it's located here is the proximity to the port. Sailors coming into port shouldn't have to travel too far to have their good time after a long voyage at sea. And here we are at the palace of the Lieutenant General Governor of Odessa, Vorontsov. This is the same Vorontsov that had Pushkin exiled for having an affair with his wife. The palace itself, as you can see, is in a little bit of a disrepair these days, but the government is paying to get it fixed. But what is restored is this beautiful colonnade that stands in front of the palace, but it also stands above the old port of Odessa. And as the legend goes, Vorontsov used to come out here to this colonnade every morning, presumably with his coffee and newspaper, and he would look over the port. And in the port was docked the Russian Imperial Navy that he was in command of, as well as all of the commercial shipping that would come into Odessa. I can just imagine him standing here every morning, looking over his vast holdings, probably very proud of what he achieved in life. In a recent development here in Odessa, the city government placed these miniature bronze models of all of the monuments right next to the real thing. And this is done for the visually impaired. That way an individual can still come, visit the monument, learn about its history, and then see the monument simply by running their hands over it. Here we are at the Vorontsov Palace. Another monument that graces the Odessa city center is that of the Russian Empress Catherine the Great. Catherine the Great is known for being the founder of Odessa, as it was under her rule that Odessa was first chartered. And under her patronage, Odessa became the third largest city in the then Russian Empire. The statue was first built around 1900, but was soon dismantled following the Communist Revolution. This was all in their attempt to erase the traces of the Tsarist regime in Russia. After years in a museum courtyard, the monument was only restored again in 2007 and was placed at its present and historical location. Catherine stands surrounded by her 4 companions, also called her favorites, and some say her secret lovers. Deribas, who we already heard about, one of the first administrators of Odessa. De Richleau, a statesman and one of the first builders of Odessa and the Odessa port. Platon Zubov, the last of Catherine's favorites. Their affair actually started when she was 60 and he was only 22. And finally, we have Gregory Potemkin, Catherine's lifelong lover, friend, and marshal of her armies. Well guys, our walk of Odessa is coming to a close, and I wanted to end it next to a statue of a very famous Odessan, the author Isaac Babel. Isaac Babel is famous for writing a set of short stories called the Odessa Tales. And in those tales, he brings to life many famous characters, such as Benya Creek, the Jewish gangster. And it's from those tales that I first learned about Odessa and truly fell in love with it. Today, Babil sits right here in his own square, overlooking his old apartment building where he used to live and wrote the majority of those tales from. And that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching my video, and I hope to see you in the next one. And before I head home, I'm going to ask you guys for a favor. If you liked what you saw in this video, please hit the like button and tell me what you thought of it down below in the comments. Also, hit the subscribe button to get the latest updates from my channel. I'll see you next time.